What's the difference between a virtue and a value? Is there any difference? I want to talk a bit about that today. Hi, I'm Warren, the rector here at St. Columba's. Glad you could join me for my message of the day. When I think of a virtue, I think of who I am, my character. A virtue inheres within us. A virtue is not a filter that I look through to see the world. A virtue is not a pair of spectacles that I put on, even if I leave them on permanently, to see the world. The virtue of humility is not a filter through which I see the world. I suppose it's more like my eyes themselves, if we wanted to follow that metaphor through. And a virtue does not lead to extremism. So, the virtue of honesty. If someone asked my opinion about something they were wearing, for instance, it's a bit superficial, but let's just say, now I might be honest, but cruel. See, the virtue of honesty interacts with other virtues to make sure that my response to the person actually is helpful. Another characteristic, and I think this is very important about a virtue, is that evil and virtues don't coexist easily. So in practicing evil, virtues will be degraded, and what might have been a virtue will become more like a shell or divorced from who we really are. Now, contrast that with a value. Now, a lot of values we use the words that we used to say, like compassion or honesty, etc., humility. We can still talk of them as values, of course, and it seems to be the preferred word these days. But I've noticed that part of why we use that word now is to in some way make a distance between us and the value. It's something we value, but it's not necessarily who we are. It can be who we are, but not necessarily so. It's closer to a filter than, say, the word virtue is. And a value can be used in the service of evil. So take the value of innovation. Now I don't really think of value as innovation as a value, but people do. But you could use innovation in the service of evil, and it won't degrade the value itself. You can become even more innovative in the pursuit of evil. Whereas the virtues, if you pursue evil, will be degraded. I think that's the two big differences between values and virtues. One is, when we use the word value, are we trying to make some kind of difference, separation between us and the value, and the way in which we can misuse a value and still practice the value, even hone it. And perhaps the other difference would be, as I mentioned with virtues, is values don't necessarily need discernment of how they should be applied. So if you have a value of honesty, I'm going to be honest with this person, and you tell them something but you do it in a cruel way. See, the virtue of honesty will lead you somewhere else, not to that extreme of cruelty. Hope that's helpful. Bye-bye.